work, so she had to be at work at like noon, like I was saying, and we left at 4:30 this morning to make sure she was, I mean, back by like 11:30. It
Okay,
works.
so there was a good valid reason for it.
Yes, yeah, and it was like a really really awesome time, like perfect memories and things like that. Can't ask for anything better.
So you rang in 2020 in a nice fashion.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was good. It was good. A lot of joy, a lot of good stuff, despite the situation being what it was. So
Yeah.
I would have just stayed up there and done this there, but it was like this. It really works out. It was very convenient that it worked out that way. And
You
uh,
were you were in what state again?
I'm in Texas,
You're in
Houston.
Texas. Okay, Texas. I've been there a few times. I know it's massive. It's like as big as California. Actually, it's bigger than California, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. California is just really tall. Texas is both tall and wide.
Yeah.
From here to El Paso, which is like right next to the New Mexican border, it's like 12 and a half hours.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
California takes up like half of the like lengthwise, top to bottom. It's like half. It's more than half, isn't it, of the whole
Yeah, it
states?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oregon and Washington are definitely dwarfed by the height.
Yeah. I lived there my whole life. I'm out of it now, but like California is a it's a trip. I'm kind of
It
happy to be
really
out.
is.
You
I
visited?
made I made a trip out to LA a couple of months ago just to visit and show my girlfriend at the time like Los Angeles, so she could kind of have the Hollywood illusion ruined and humanize the city.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, I don't get it. I was like, I don't either. But I was gonna come. I was gonna come here at one point and all this stuff. So glad I didn't.
Yeah, Hollywood is more of a Hollywood only lives on the screen, right? There's not any actual Hollywood.
I mean, I'll tell you, man. We went looking for the Hollywood sign. I couldn't find it. I don't know. I don't know.
Depends on how imaginative you are, I think, because there some people. There's always a sort of balancing point between like once you get a hold of a little bit of information, you can be sort of reasonable and be like, okay, well, it's possible, it's not possible, or you can just go off the deep end and be like, nothing's real,
Nothing is.
everything's fake, I don't exist, and all of these things, of course, which are like, you have to go through all that stuff, you have to go through all that stuff, but be able to sort of maintain sanity while sort of filtering through everything,
Certainly.
which not everybody can do. So you have people just going off and just literally going insane in front of your eyes.
Yeah. It vindicates my sanity, like which I covet. I really do. I covet my. I've done enough to whittle it away, and I start talking to people about anything that I'm interested in remotely. They're just like, "So you're sane? Like you've never been to like a place where they put you know the best kind of people. Oh my
You're
god.
not straight out of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
No, but I'd like to be. I think that movie's great.
It was.
I'm also a cinemaphile, so like I did film and editing and stuff like that. So when I left high school and I was going to college for film and fine art, I had connections in LA and Dallas and stuff like that. And I'm very glad that like I got into Luciferianism at the time, and I figured out that was everybody's format. And I was like, fuck this. No, this is no. It's quite all right. I can live my life without that. And but like to this day, I have like a mad love for movies and cinema and just like editing. The simplest of things that people skim over, and the magic of movies is a real thing, dude. It really
It
is.
is. It is. It's been tainted by the nasty side of everything, but just in general, like presenting sort of like art is the movie format is good because you get lost in it, right? Like if you go into a movie and you forget you're in the theater, like that's a good thing. That's like an
Oh, yeah.
achievement.
And I think this is just my opinion and things like that, but I think a movie is really as good as its rewatch value. And there are some
Ah,
movies that can just be watched over and over and over and over again.
yeah, yeah. Books are kind of like that too.
Hell yes. Never the same character twice, but on the page it's finite. It's there. Our
Yeah.
brains are awesome.
Like a book is just a portal, and you can even see it from different possible perspectives, even if you're sort of reading the same words. Like there's only so much information can be written down, right? Like I remember
Yeah.
I watched one of your videos. I haven't watched a lot of your stuff, but I watched, and you only have like 4 videos, I think. So
Yeah, there's nothing to watch. I've taken so much stuff down on purpose, and like I keep things kind of squeaky clean. Keep only what I think's relevant, and all this
hmm
stuff. I've got I think 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I just don't like put out a lot of content. Been talking to some friend of mine lately that we want to kind of do a slight chronicle of like how we met and why our lives are fucking bananas for the fact that it is what it is. But yeah, it's been a while. I've definitely grown out and around a lot of things, but ultimately it's still all upstairs and it's unshakable. Like
mm.
unshakable. The things you can't unknow. And luckily, get this. So my roommate just got off work not too long ago, so he should be here in a minute, and he can attest to my shenanigans because he's been around for years now. So like he knows I'm like really well practiced with the shit that I do, and when I was doing all of this stuff that we'll end up talking about with CAC and all this shit, he saw me get like hyper reclusive like really quickly, and nobody knew what the fuck I was doing. So they can attest to the chronology of events, which is like I don't like to tell stories that don't like involve other people. Like I've had so much shit happen to me by myself that it's unbelievable. But I only like to tell the stories that involve other people because they can, vindicate my sanity.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of shit with a lot of people, man. And a lot of those people don't stick around because they're just like, if this is for life, and this is like the weirdness that happens on a reoccurring basis. I don't know how to function. I'm gonna lose my mind. It is what it is. I'm happy to be alive.
I don't know, like if you can go through the fragmenting process and still retain a core, like a core essence, that's really like it's a it's a coming of age, I guess, for those of us who aren't just like the robotic ones running around. Like it's something that you have to pass through. It's a test, and it's not any joke. Like the stuff that you have presented via regular society as, well, you don't really have anything presented anymore. It's kind of just like dull nonsense. But
Mhm.
any of those tests they just don't compare to what you'll actually get into when you do spiritual things, like actual spiritual things. There's no comparison.
There's like no test for that. The test of that is your test of sanity and just how
hmm
much you can bend before you break. And once you're broken, do you know how to, pick up the pieces and, reassemble them in something that resembles what it once was, sort of deal, so you can keep going. And what upsets me is like I've had people. And this is kind of why I don't put out a lot of content anymore, and like I only do this sort of thing so often.
hmm
But like I've had people, get on my bandwagon and like pick me apart for answers, and I'm just like I don't know how to not be honest and things like that. And I've watched people's minds unravel in front of me, like over a series of days to months, and then like eventually over the span of a year, like that person is not the same person anymore.
hmm
They can't handle it, or they can't wrap their heads around it, or some part of them has to detach to be able to process what they're taking in, and that fragmentation
hmm
is damning. And I feel like I can only feel like somewhat responsible. I don't take the blame or anything like that. I don't feel that way, but it is like really disheartening to like I don't know, like be talking about something for a couple of years and then be like watching a movie and then like what the context of it is everything you've been talking about for several years, and everybody's like ooh ah. But luckily like my roommate, he's able to like sit down and watch a movie with me and be like, dude, that's what you were talking about like 2 years ago, that's what you were talking about 3 years ago. And I have a funny saying that I just told my dad in Oklahoma. I said I'm crazy for about 2 to 3, sometimes 5, 10 years at most, but it comes back around, and like there's vindication there. And
hmm
what's common knowledge now was like demonized such a short time ago.
Right.
Bananas. I'm gonna go outside and smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, sure. Um, that is a good point that you made that I try to keep in mind when I'm talking with anybody, really, because it's dangerous. Like, information is dangerous. So if you try to disclose something to somebody who's not ready for it, you can kill them. Like my girlfriend was saying the other day, Andrea, she was like, if we told my grandparents, any of maybe just a simple thing about the religion that everybody follows, like your mainstream religion, if you told them, some things about that, and they like actually believed you, they would just have a heart attack immediately and die. Like you can't just
Yeah,
you can't just yeah you can't just go around doing things because like, and that's only level one. Like then if you go into the reversal thing, you can say, well, maybe these people actually are getting benefit even though the religion is not what it pretends, so maybe you don't need to just run in there and tell them, you guys were fed a lie. Like there's a whole bunch of different layers to the whole thing, but some people can't handle any of it. You can't tell them anything.
no, that's just like how we're formatted, man. Like the older you get, and it's silly because anything can be changed. I think like in a day, even in a couple of hours, you can change your mind. You can hear something new and begin to think a different way. But the older you get, the harder it is to kind of shake that, especially when you've been living the mentality and believing what you are living, because that's all you've got. That's
Right.
all you know how to do is just live what you're believing. And here's an example. My dad's dad is a pastor in New Mexico. He's got his own congregation and has for the longest time. I am the epitome of the apple that fell out of the tree and rolled over like 6 hills in a plateau and then planted itself in a swamp. But, like, oh, Joseph, say hello to Gary.
Hello, Gary.
Hey Joseph, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show. You're in it now irrevocably.
What? I'm on a show.
You are the show, Joseph.
Oh, I am. Make it feel special.
Should capital S special.
Capital S.
We're all special. We're all also not special. That's another of the that's another layer that people have to break through, is the idea of specialness, like how it's presented via media, which is only there to like draw, false attention to shitty narratives. And then once you get past that, you realize like, oh, I'm actually not special. And then you're like, oh, once I realize I'm not special, that means I'm actually special. Like there's a lot of reversals built into everybody.
Like a lot of things, when you really, pick them apart and get to the root of a lot of stuff, most of this fucking life tangibly is a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so many ways, and I've been like really blessed to be able to like examine this life for not just what I can see, but for what I've come to figure out it is. And all like, yeah, it's subjective, and everybody's got something they're really good at and shit. And even if like you're really good at not being good at anything, that's still a tangible thing. It's measurable, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, a lot of things that go on in disclosure communities and all this stuff that turns out to be wacky and off, that has some pretty solid like reasoning. There's a way to explain it. But so when I find something that's a paradox, when I get to the root of something that's a paradox, I'm like, okay, this is the thing that makes sense to me.
Can you give an example? Take any paradox in mainstream religion and not religion, and just the society, and see if you can make an example.
This isn't really an example per se. Okay, yeah, Joseph is, yeah. So the paradox of free will and things like destiny and fate and all this stuff, because like I read palms and like we have a line of fate and destiny, so that word to me is like got a different meaning. It's really fucky, but there are some things that are, I guess, preordained. Some people are meant to have some kinds of conversations,
Mm-hmm.
but shit, why am I drawing a blank? I talk about paradoxes all the fucking time. It's just something that fundamentally, like life Okay.
Paradox and illusion that we think we have free will when a lot of something already be preordained for us.
It could be. It could be preordained.
It could be. We don't know.
Is it measurable though? But so here's a good one that I like because it's simple. So they say there is no one truth. Truth is subjective to everybody who's interpreting it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Truth in itself is also an opinion because one's truth is different than another person.
that's true. So yeah, see what I'm saying? It's subjective, but the truth is there is no one truth. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the fucking truth though? That is like that's the one truth. Is that there is no one truth. Like itself is a paradox. And like again,
You can get lost in it really easily. You can get lost in the because the mind is so intricate. It's infinite, really. Like your own mind is just. You can take any idea, and you can say, such is true, and then you can bring logic that supports that, and that will be true. And then someone could say, no, Spencer, you're full of shit. That is not true. And then they'll bring equally, correct logic to prove what was just proven to be true is also not true. So it's like the 1984, right? Doublespeak, sort of a paradoxical language at all times, but it's not necessarily a problem. Like, you have to imagine, like, if consciousness has been going on for a really fucking long time, and I have a feeling it has, then it's examined itself from every single possible vantage point, and it knows all this stuff. Like, inside of you know all this stuff. So at a certain point, it becomes like, how can we, being consciousness, still manage to like entertain ourselves or have fun or do something new if we've done so many things in the past? So it starts becoming like this fractal present essence that just knows all of the paradoxes and ins and outs, but still manages to have fun and play and like keep it fresh at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah. One of my favorite things is like just the fact that like I get to wake up and learn something new. Like I have an opportunity to learn something new every day, and if that contradicts something that I held to be a belief, it's eroded. And I'm like really grateful I can do that because like my grandfather can't.
Mm-hmm.
He's stuck. He's stuck on his pulpit, and like there's no pulpit between me and you.
Elena, can you stop, please? Thank you. Your audio cut out just for a second.
Oh, nuts.
But Elena was trying to make a scene, so it was good timing. But yeah, there's no pulpit. Like, it's very fascinating for me to watch how the idea of like someone having power when they speak has morphed over the years from someone talking in church and then it came to the internet, which allowed one person to simultaneously talk to like millions of people at once, and then it went to like all the fake news and the fake like lie thing that was put out to try to like I guess hold the attention, because at some point the people are going to get bored of what's being put out there as if it's special just simply because it has millions of eyes. Like that's what became the metric, was what we're putting out is special only because so many people are watching it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And all the content and value.
It's a different currency. Yeah. It's a different agreed upon currency.
Mm-hmm. All the content and value was lost though, so now it's just like an empty. It's just like nonsense. Like the mainstream news are talking heads, and the people listening are zombies. Like it's nobody talking to nobody. That's what it has become.
Or just simple regurgitation, and people don't realize how easy it is to just regurgitate something you've heard instead of like having your own experience about something and like doubting your own sanity for a little bit, only to come back around and be like, oh yeah, that really did happen that way. And again, that's why I like telling stories where other people are with me and are involved.
Yeah, like being able to keep the playfulness. Like I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me while like wading through these just oceans of pain and angst, and there's torture involved, there's mental anguish, there's like, and then add like existential angst on top of all that. Like it's not a very good a mixture to be like marinating in for too long. Which I guess would be the dark night, like some sort of dark night of the soul that I think all of us have to go through. But you come out of that, make it through, alive and somewhat sane, then you now have everything that you've gone through as a tool in your tool belt, and you can actually like begin to give back to the community.
That's what I get hung up now on the term truther or even disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Because like dis would be like the negative prefix of closure, so you're not getting any closure, and then you have all these people running around telling the truth, but that's all subjective. What isn't subjective, however, is honesty. Like just being honest. Like I don't understand how this is. Have a grasp on this concept or that. People are so scared not to be certain, but that's why regurgitation of information is so easy. There's like new things happening all the time, but some people would say like, there's nothing new under the sun sort of deal. So
well, there's nothing new until you do something. It's always about you, the personal, the individual, and then that goes back to like how many people are actually sold and have an internal essence versus how many are NPCs or walking automatons or organic portals. There's lots of names, backfills, whatever. Like it's only you. Like you as the individual conscious person are either going to sit around and do nothing and pass the buck to the next guy, or you're going to do something. Like those are the only two options.
Which is why I did what I did. The stuff I talked about with Og Telez, like it took me about 2 years to wrap my head around everything that happened chronologically, and I had to keep like referring back to my notes and all this shit, all these journals and stuff I keep. Like, did this really happen in this order, or are you just trying to fill in the blank somehow? But eventually, you get to the point where you like hit the wall and you're like, oh, shit. Like, I either acknowledge that this happened for somebody else to expand on, or like you just sit and wallow in self-doubt, and that is like not conducive to any sort of good mental health at all.
No, it's not. Before I would like to get into that, but before we do that, could you just do like a brief introduction and kind of say how you came about the sort of the path of awakening? I know it's cliche terms, but just a pretty short synopsis about you.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm decently versed in my own life. I think I can do that. So as soon as I was able to have like access to just information that people didn't have like a concrete root understanding of, I was like picking up those books, as in like I was a library aide in the 7th grade.
Okay.
And as a kid, I had very much full access to the library, had tons of time. I worked very quickly, so I had like a lot of free time to just pick up shit and read it. So the first thing I did was like pick out shit on Sasquatch and Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, fucking ghosts and UFOs and all this stuff. And learning about that really opened up a lot of doors for me, and it kind of opened a lot of doors to other things, because with awareness, things become aware of you. And so like I just did like earlier this year I was on Travel Channel. I did an interview for Travel Channel about this area here, the history, why the fuck this area is cursed as hell, and why there is so much activity around this. And I went on and told just a story, and it aired earlier in December.
Was this for like regular TV?
Oh yeah, cable TV.
Yeah. That's kind of cool.
It was all right. They took a lot of what I said out of context, but then again, like, that's television for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think if you can get on regular TV as someone who's has some knowledge, and you can actually connect with their audience, like without having them try to burn you or run you out of the town on a stake or whatever, right? Like, you're doing good. That's pretty good. That's an achievement.
It's something. It was one of those things that happened, like just organically, where I was working at the time. It's like a 123-year-old house, and it's like full of crystals and all this stuff, and it's a really, really cool place to be. And I've been going there since I was maybe like 15, 16, so they really helped me, they really helped pull me through my adolescence, these good people. And while I was there, like, I already knew it was haunted. I already knew there was stuff going on. But working there, I got a call one day, and they're like, "Hi, this is so and so from the Travel Channel, and we just wanted to ask you a question and see if you'd be interested in doing this. You can tell us a little bit about yourself and the town and all of this. We'll see if we want to pursue like an interview." And uh, I went on. I think I had a 4-hour Skype call with a producer, and she was really cool. And I didn't know anything was going to end up coming out of it for the sake of, like, I don't think I'm good enough to fucking be on TV. But it ended up working out, and they came down from New York and filmed a bunch of stuff in the town. While they were here, the camera crew got flooded out. Like, their SUV flooded.
Yeah.
It was bad. Like, really, really bad.
Were they coming to see the house, or they're coming to see you specifically, or they just wanted you to talk about the house?
It was about the town.
The town, okay.
And, the fires and stuff that happen like on a regular basis there. So I just knowing where I grew up, knowing the history of where I grew up, I was able to provide some context for them.
Can you share the name of that town?
Yeah, it's Old Town Spring. Very,
Spring?
very simple. Most of it's German settled
And
area.
it's in Texas? It's in Texas or no?
Yeah. It's a northern, not suburb of Houston, but it's just the original area that was, developed north of Houston.
Okay.
When like German settlers and stuff moved here. And
Old Town Spring?
Old Town Spring.
I like to keep notes because, like, anytime... That's something I found out myself during my own thing, was that, like, it's so immense once you actually, like, get past most of your blocks and things like that, and you actually think of, like, what potentiality actually means, like, for myself, for you, for anybody. It's so immense. Like, that's partially what causes people to break down, is thinking in terms of their own life. They're like, oh my god, like, I can really do anything, like, just on this little planet. And then you imagine outside of that, like, if someone's actually creating this universe, and you could perhaps create another construct, like, your head will just explode. So most people can't imagine it. But once you get past all that, like, it literally is, it's an adventure. Like, every piece of information, you can go look it up in the library, go look it up on Google, go call someone up on the phone, like, any of these things. Like, where's the end to it?
Right. I'm always searching for, like, the loose end. Because if I find a loose end, that tells me that there's, like, a little bit more than a kernel of truth to it. That it's not been fully explored, and that nobody has, like, a definite explanation for these things. So even as a kid, reading all of this stuff, reading these short little books and all these little things, like, there was no real conclusion at the end of those books. It's all like, well, what do you think, and things of that nature.
Most people surmise that such and so might be the truth. Right?
According to this person and this person and this person, like, everybody has, like, a popular idea in their mind of UFO or Sasquatch or Nessie and shit like that. So
yeah,
as a kid, that was the scab I couldn't stop picking at, was like, what's underneath this, and why isn't there a definite reasoning behind why we can't explain it, if some of these things have been going on for a really, really long time. And after high school, I'd really done my homework on JFK, and just you get the incremental, like, learnings of things, the things that tip you off into looking at other things. And I'm really lucky, I guess you could say that I was always able to pick up, like, the right book at the right time. The right thing would come across my feed, or somebody would recommend the right thing for me to watch, to where it would just instigate my wanting to know. And for a while, like every teenager knows they have the world figured out. It's not a question in their mind. They know they have the world figured out. And everything is fucking unfair. I really need to focus on my art right now, Mom. But going from, like, high school to going to college for fine art and film and stuff didn't last too long. I was very glad that I got out before I accrued too much student debt. But then I moved like to downtown Houston for a while, and then I moved to Virginia Beach, and then I had access to Edgar Casey's library
Mm.
up there in Virginia Beach, his institute, and I did not know how much of a novelty it was to be able to study some of that stuff because come to find out it's like the biggest metaphysical library on the planet, and it's an institute. People will go there and get a little piece of paper that says I'm a psychic or whatever it is, and they had a lot of free shit, and I was only 15 minutes from there, so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time at that library too. That was about the time uh, Google became a crutch for a lot of people, not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
myself, because like I've always valued hard copies of things, books, and all this stuff. I keep handwritten notes, mostly on loose leaf.
Google
But
whitewashed their crap pretty recently to where now your search result just gives business only. Like whenever I search something on Google, I only ever wanted to see like an actual human saying, "This is my experience with yada yada," like thought form I typed in, and now it's just like there's businesses that have like their definition of the word, and it's like, dude, this is nasty.
it's crazy. I've definitely noticed as I've studied algorithms and what they trigger, keywords, and what those do, how things function and filter, that I can't look up shit on Google anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like the language is being rewired to where you can know what to type in to look for most things, and then now like you're saying, it's been like really really whitewashed with just like what can you pay to have at the top of the list sort of deal, and
Yeah.
and
It's like every
that
result is, uh, your friendly tax specialist that's going to help you. Like, it has nothing to do with what you're talking about. It's just like whitewashed nonsense. So silly.
oversaturation, man.
It's like I want a Reddit response, on every single
Yeah.
Google thing that I'm typing. I don't want any of this, like, ugh, it's so gross. Like, that's what we're dealing with. That's the beast itself, is repetition and imitation and copying. That's the whole thing. Like, and the opposite of that is, the living organic essence intelligence that is ever fresh and anew, and like it's always creating. So those are the two that I see as at odds with each other, rather than like your typical, God versus Satan. I see it as like safety, repetition, what do you call it? Assembly lines versus over here on this side, like uncertainty, the unknown, the mysterious, the curious, and then on this side tend to happen like lies. Lots of lies hanging on this side, and then on this side it's just like there's a curious child who might be about to get his head chopped off, but he's still like he's whatever. Like that's life.
And see, like I don't like cool. If you're gonna chop off my head, that's cool. Just make sure the axe is sharp first.
Right.
Let's get it over with or something. But
Yeah.
even still, like Virginia Beach. When I was there, I was delivering pizzas to the Navy base out there, and I was like one of two drivers that was even allowed on the base. So I have missing time on the base at the vindication of my manager's anger. Like an hour and a half of time is just not there. I took pictures of a surface to air craft that was a water based craft. It looked like a speedboat. So I was like delivering pizza to this lighthouse on the peninsula out there on the private base, and they saw me up in the lighthouse, like pull up and like take a picture of this thing that came in. It turns out like the food was for the people in this craft, and made me the shit like in front of them. And I thought I had kept a picture, but no, I didn't. It was gone.
They took it off of your phone.
Yeah, they made me like they're like, okay, we saw you taking pictures. Like we need to visually confirm that you're deleting those pictures because like not only can you get in trouble, but we can get in trouble. And I'm just like, I'm just here to deliver pizza. And they never tipped for shit either.
Wow.
So I would like they would do like expeditions out of there. It's a joint expeditionary base, the second largest Navy base on the planet. The largest one is in Norfolk, which is probably only really a couple minutes from Virginia Beach, and I never went to that one. But while I was in Virginia Beach, dude, like my girlfriend and I, we were we were just sitting at home one night watching movies on the laptop, and outside there was this loud, like droning noise, and they fly jets, like really, really low to the ground out there over suburban areas,
Mm-hmm.
and like, so that was my first thought is that okay, well they're flying missions and shit, but it's super late at night, and it would just rumble everything, and then it would just cut out really, really, really fast, and then it would keep going, and then just stop on a whim, and it sounded like wind, it sounded like a jet, and then her and I eventually went outside, and when we saw all the local people outside, like looking up at the sky and like looking around the apartment complex, we're like, okay, well, this is some strange shit. So I have a video somewhere of the noise because it was just too good. It was too good not to have any documentation of. But maybe like a year or so later, I came to understand that they were drilling like underground. They were boring tunnels like with those huge boring machines.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing it under our feet. And
Wow.
that's why it sounded like it was coming from everywhere. Is because it was emanating from the ground all around us. It was weird. It sounded like it was like coming from the sky, and then like you'd go into an area that was like really flat, and you're just like, what on earth is this noise?
So there was no like official explanation in the newspaper or nothing?
Hell no.
No?
No, the thing out there, there's such a radical dissonance with like having the government so fucking ingrained in your life. Most of the people out there are, you know, Navy based or out there for mostly, you know, government work and shit. So they have like stickers on the back of their cars that say "I heart jet noise," and like you can't talk about how loud the jets are because they'll just be like, "Well, that's the sound of our freedom being protected" and shit like that. So, like I said, there's a pretty radical dissonance out there. So, you know, the
Wow.
consensus kind of was like, "Well, we don't know, but you know, the government's out there doing some shit," and that's not too different than like 50, 60 years ago out in Nevada, where like everything will like rumble for a little bit. And you're like, what's that? And it's like, oh, that's the government testing nuclear weapons. They're doing some weird shit out there, man. But I looked up, I had heard I don't remember what it was. Somebody was very much a faith-based YouTube organization. And the noise I was hearing, the loud rumbling and then the immediate stop, some people were like, oh, those are the sound of the angels. Those are the trumpets being played and all this stuff. And then I was like, well, it's happening all over the world. And like a lot of these areas, they look kind of, you know, like they're contingent with ley lines and military bases. And I'm just like, oh, fuck. Why did that not occur to me that I was standing in an area where like the government runs everything? And I'm like, that's our black budget, man. Like the boring companies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Giant fucking caterpillar earth-eating looking things that are impossibly huge. So like all the while, this is probably in 2011. Yeah, it's 2011 and 2012. Her and I decided during December 21st, 2012, we wanted to go camping because we weren't so much worried about the world ending or anything, but we were more or less worried about how people were going to react. People are the ones that are unpredictable. If the world ends, that's a finite circumstance, but people are uncontrollable. So after that, we were like, what are we doing here, sort of deal. And we had planned to find an area of the country that hadn't really been touched. And believe it or not, there's plenty of places on this continent where people don't go. And the government has no interest in fucking nailing people out there. So we were like, you know, how do we go about this? I've been a carpenter for like forever, so I know I can build anything from anything. If I can see it in my head, I can apply it with my hands. We eventually decided that we were gonna, instead of putting our family and friends through the stress of never hearing from us again, we're like, let's go check out a commune, like an egalitarian intentional community, and found one. Stayed there for a couple of months in early 2013. And I learned how to raise goats and like rotate chickens to till fields and shit. And I brewed 25 gallons of beer. I did all kinds of stuff. It was a really good time. And
how many people were there?
This is in Mineral, Virginia. So it's like a really small town, but the commune had like anywhere from 32 to 35 people in it.
Okay.
And it was a sister community. of one that was like 20 miles away called Twin Oaks, and they had like 104, 106 people living sustainably off the land, and they had a school out
Mm.
there. There weren't tons and tons of kids at the community I stayed in, but like if they needed an education, like at least a somewhat formal one, they could go over there and hang out. And we would like take a field trip and shit to the other community for like a Valentine's Day party and just random little things. Very neat experience. I kind of miss it, but I wanted to bring it back. I wanted to be able to take what I learned and come back to Texas and apply it somehow. So in all this time, I'm thinking that like reptilians run the government and shit. Just very much along the lines of David Icke and all this stuff. I got back to Texas. I had really whittled out and filtered for myself those concrete people with all their vindication of this is what's happening to our planet and this is why you should listen to me because I know what I'm certain about what I'm talking about, and that shit scares me. It takes a very large level of uncertainty to be able to be honest.
Those are the most dangerous ones, dude. The most dangerous ones are the ones that know the truth, like beyond any shadow of the doubt. Like those are the most dangerous ones.
Certainly. And then you have, like, okay, it's very apparent Ike knows what he's talking about, but at the same time, the more you do your homework and the more you look into what he's saying, it's like, okay, there's like things that don't line up. And he'll have like backtracked on something. I'm just using David as an example,
Mm-hmm.
but you're like, okay, so cool, you're human still because you're inconsistent to some degree, so that tells me you're still a person.
Right.
But you keep writing these books, man. You keep giving these lectures, and you have all these people pay you to see you and pay for your books. And like, cool, intellectual property is one thing, but if like the honest to God truth is happening, like live it, like live that truth, live in that honesty. And so I was really hell bent on debunking people for a long time because I thought I knew something a little bit more, and I was kind of lashing out in anger because the truth is I didn't understand what the fuck was going on. I was just able to pinhole and pick apart things, and I met this dude named Donald Marshall who talks about cloning centers and all this shit being cloned into the Illuminati and all this stuff.
Yep. I've listened a little bit to Donald.
Yeah, I'm like a little bit more confident in talking about this shit now. But initially, that was like I was like, cool, another person to rip apart. And I started looking into things and listening to what he was saying, and it's like, fuck, a lot of this sounds consistent. Like a lot of this sounds very in line with what I've thought about things, and hearing it come from somebody who's able to put it into words, even very shakily, it was enough for me to be like, okay, let me pay a little attention to this dude. And within the course of like 2 years, him and I were like pretty fucking close. I can say this because it's a fact. It's an undisputable fact that if it was not for me, Donald Marshall probably wouldn't be alive. He was living in Florida at the time when I met him,
Mm-hmm.
and he was living in Miami. And his girlfriend was like kind of a shithead, but she had like staged a break-in on him at one point to like scare the hell out of him. And after that, I was like, damn, I gotta get close to this person to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. Because
Why would she stage a break-in? Are you saying she was like operating via someone else, or someone else was going through her?
He would have told you that, but I think ultimately she just got tired of like dealing with shit and wanted to see if he was very much legitimate, because she believed a lot of what he said, and this stuff about cloning and memories and all this Dreamtime shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was more on her part. She was trying to just test the waters. So she got some of these dudes that she knows in Miami to come in and like fuck up the house and scare the hell out of him. And again, man, like this isn't me talking shit. If I'm being honest, then only like honesty will come out of it. Like all I know how to do is be honest because my life is so ridiculous that I don't really think I have room to exaggerate. I don't have room to fucking inflate anything, and that's why I was like quiet for a while, for a long time, because it's like I can't fucking prove this. I want to know what I'm talking about, and uh, he was like very much like somebody who abused alcohol and a couple of other substances, and you just try and be there like as a friend after a while, and like luckily I'm funny enough that like I can keep myself pretty entertained. I'm blessed that I've been able to make three different people, three separate occasions, laugh so hard they like projectile vomited. Like that's something I'm like only half proud of, but still in awe. So he would get drunk and be like, "I'm sad, entertain me," and all this shit. And with his story the way it was, I was just like, I'm like, wait, I'm in too deep now, and I might as well just play this out. So I got really close to his girlfriend, and she was an obstetrician. She made diets for the celebrities that lived out in Miami.
Oh yeah.
And so she really considered me a good friend, and that like I would help them facilitate some of their issues and shit like that. Because I mean, fuck it, people in relationships have issues, but a lot of it stemmed from his inability to cope with everything. He was drinking every day and fucked up, and you know, you whoop on people, whoop on her, and you know, I've got everything saved, conversations, screenshots, pictures, so that if it's old, you're full of it. Honestly, no. I wish I could say I was. I wish I could say that the person that you idolize is to be idolized, but like, don't get close to your heroes. I guess. Say.
Yeah.
One night is 2015, 2014. It's the night of the Super Bowl, and of course, like I tune in to just catch the concert and shit, and I get a call from her and I miss it, and she leaves an 8-second voicemail where she's just weeping, like openly weeping. And I call her back immediately, and she's like, "Well, he hit me and fucked me up." And I was like, "You gonna go to your abuela's? You gonna go to your grandma's?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm already on my way." I'm just like, "Good, just y'all fucking get some space from each other for fuck's sake." Like, start looking at it more rationally. And after that, she started sending me screenshots of some of these guys that were like, "Where the fuck is he? Like, we're gonna kill him. Like, that's it. We're gonna go and we're gonna fuck him up." And so, being the loyal friend that I fucking am, I sent them all to him, and he's just like, "Thank fuck for you." And he got out of Miami before they could fuck him up, and I really think they would have probably fucked him up irreversibly to where like he wouldn't be the same person if he even made it out of that situation, because
Yeah.
like Miami is crazy. It just
That's where the guy got his face eaten off, right? Back in the day.
yeah,
like,
yeah, by
that whole
fucking dude on PCP,
yeah.
bath salts.
bath salts, yeah.
Oh boy, yeah, that's Florida for you, Florida man.
And Florida also has always been big in like prescription drug abuse, right? By doctors, just
Yes.
like handing them out to everybody that has money.
Yeah, they get paid for as many subscriptions as they have
Yeah.
prescribed to people, and it sucks it's that way. But that's Miami, fucking the home of football. I think he's from Miami. That's silly. Why the fuck am I bringing Pitbull into this? But yeah, it's like it's
I
a
don't
party
know.
city, so everybody's like either making money or they're skimming. They're skimming off the top and barely able to get by. So
Or you work in like a casino or something, and you're making like money from the drug dealers coming in and like playing poker
Yes.
or whatever.
fucking that's the closest place to Cuba we got, man. That's it. That's the closest place to Cuba we got. So yeah, there's all kinds of crazy shit happening in Florida. But after that incident, I convinced him to move back to Nova Scotia in Canada, and he hasn't been able to come back in the country because he overstayed his fucking visa, and he's up there, like still funneling money, still just blatantly making so much about him that has like little to nothing to do with him. and like ultimately, I think his mind's been snapped, and in order to like cope with the shit that like I think he does understand and he knows like there's a difference between knowing and understanding, but with what I think he does understand, like it was enough to break a person. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said earlier, like I've watched people fucking unravel just being hungry to figure out just maybe how ugly the world really is. And I mean, it is some of the ugliest shit on the planet what he's talking about, and in
Do,
that time getting to know him, all this cloning and stuff, it happens on an REM basis, rapid eye movement.
mm-hmm.
Like that's the most malleable brainwave we have, dude. Like it condenses time, it condenses our memory into like such a short amount of time, yet our brain still functions as it would normally, just really, really, really fast. So, like in a dream, we have this very skewed sense of time. And I keep saying things like I'm really lucky, I'm really blessed, and all this stuff, but I have been conveniently placed. I keep conveniently placing things in my path that come to fruition later. That it's like, God, I am so glad I did this before. And I've been writing my dreams down since like summer of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw Inception, and I said, all right,
How
perfect.
many levels deep am I? I must be like 8 or 9.
Right?
Right.
And so I was able to start picking apart my dreams and figuring out what my subconscious was regurgitating at a very young age. And like now, I can tell you the difference between like being sucked into a fucking clone body in your sleep as opposed to uh, like what somebody would consider like astral travel, or then like there's like the real format of dreams where your subconscious is just like trying to get you to understand and reconcile the things that you can't quite stomach consciously,
Mm-hmm.
but it does it indirectly. People are like, dude, I'm really lucky that people have been able to come to me with a lot of weird fucking dreams, and like they're just like, I don't understand. Like I'm a normal person. I don't do anything bad. I've never done anything wrong in my life, but like why do I keep dreaming about like fucking my cousin, like fucking my sister, or like having some weird stuff? The brain is just trying to manage. And I was like, because it's all indirect, and what you're seeing is just like a very like you're saying like how many levels deep am I? But the subconscious is only one level deep, and that's because everything has to pass consciously through you to get recorded into the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the format of consciousness, because what we're aware of and what we're retaining. So when it's time for the subconscious to speak and try and push information back out, it's doing it in a very indirect language, which is why dreams seem so fucked up. So like when you're like fighting with your sister in a dream and it's like really nasty and you wake up like really upset, to me it's just like, okay, that's not how you view your sister, that's how you think your sister views you. That's
Mm-hmm.
like your insecurity or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, it's very indirect, not necessarily reversed, but it's just our like feeble attempt to reconcile large swaths of emotion and information. And I know that's kind of like a buzzkill to people who like lucid dream and stuff, but ultimately I think that's like fucking beautiful.
It is.
And like I can sit here and describe brainwaves and give you a scientific aspect, and a lot of people think I'm kind of cold for viewing things from the left brain perspective, but I started out all of this like looking into the occult and doing like practicing magic and things like that. Like I started all that out with a very right brain mentality, the very much like, okay, what do I feel from this, as opposed to like what can I reconcile logically. So I was given like large, like pertinent amounts of information that I took in from really right brain perspective. So when it was time to start breaking those down and making them make sense, um, like it was easy. It was an easy switch. I already had half the equation, and I think the balance between the two,
You
the
saying you
left brain,
became
right brain.
more? Are you saying you became more logical as you got older and less
Oh
emotional?
yeah, I really think so.
Okay.
I can't help but want to take like really convoluted shit that people just not necessarily skim over, but like they look at it and they're just like, maybe that's a little too much. Like, it's too much information. And like for example, when Donald was trying to push out his information and things like that, um, one of my friends like made an honest attempt to try and condense what he had said into like a short video, and that took him like 6 hours. It took him like 6 hours to get like the gist of it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I was like, there's got to be an easier way, because like time is such a fucking precious thing, and a lot of people consider it a precious thing and don't want their time wasted.
Right.
I'm like, how do I condense this? How do I draw a web of logic and relevancy to topics based on this thing? And I was able to fucking knock out everything that could be talked about more or less at the time in like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And I got better and better at that, and finding, what not necessarily resonated with people, but what people would listen to and not just hear, but like be able to start digesting and having conversations about. Because when I showed up on like Donald Marshall's forum boards and on his Facebook and in his life, he had put out his information in 2012, like late 2012, and there wasn't like a circle of people. There wasn't anybody pushing the information out cohesively and things like that. So I looked at what I had to work with, the people that I was getting to know, and I'm like, okay, this person really should be talking to this person, and this person like has the thing to say that this person can't quite understand. Like they have the little piece that this person might be missing. And so I started like strengthening, like I just started fucking erecting pillars in the form of like relationships between people. And I started telling people who were actively trying to share the information, said, you have to do this on different platforms. There can't be any snarkiness about it. There can't be like a fucking opinion. Like you need to take what you understand and like go off of that. That's the best place to start, because for whatever reason, our subconscious knows when somebody is not like positive about what they're talking about. Even if consciously you don't have those thoughts, it'll come back up later. It always does.
Or if you're doing it out of a motivation of some sort of gain, or out of some sort of fear that you're worried that you're disclosing certain information. Like if either of those things are happening and you're speaking, anyone who's empathic and knows the human being pretty extensively will say something wrong with that guy. Like there's something wrong with how he's speaking, and you can't necessarily say like exactly how you know, but you just know immediately.
Yeah, that gut brain, dude.
Yeah.
Like we got 3 brains in us, 3 separate thinking entities: heart, the head, and the gut. And people get kind of tripped up on that format. People wonder like why their lives stagnate, or why they can't get through a certain hurdle or something like that. It's because like there is an organic process to learning and overcoming things, and that is the order that those brains are literally physically manifesting. So it has to start in the heart, and then the head, and then the gut. So it's feeling enough to know enough to be able to do enough. And like when that format is out of order, or when one thing is paid too much attention to, you get very specific kinds of people out of this. Like Gandhi was like a heart-centered person, not a perfect person by any means, but like his message, like his life was heart-centered. And then you have people like Stephen Hawking, who were just the brainy intellectual people, and it never really evolves much past that. And then like, this is a dumb example, but everybody knows somebody that just fucking lives by the seat of their pants and doesn't have like a filter, like Donald Trump. That's an example. That's a gut-based person.
Uh-huh.
But like the first sign of life detectable in any human being is what? The heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that indicates a sign of life is the heartbeat. And when our cells divide in us, when they start doing that thing, it starts forming the heart first, and then the nervous system, and then everything else. Like it's got an order. There is an order to things, but
so you're saying heart first, and then heart or feeling first, and then logic, and then action.
Yes. Okay. Feel enough to know enough to do enough.
Okay. Makes sense. I think a lot of people suffer from what do you call it? Too much information, like information overload. And
well, yeah, absolutely.
And then they become paralyzed. Like if they don't know how to if they don't have like a reasonable way of processing information, like for instance YouTube alone, like you can go and get sucked into YouTube like a black hole and you don't come out for forever, really. Like you never come out, and you're just insane. Like you have to have some filtering mechanism or some like way to stop yourself from consuming too much of it, or actually talk with other people, so it's not just you against the so-called regular people who do view you as insane, right? Like you need to have, there needs to be some, network or something. There has to be some way for you to deal with it, to process it.
Conflict's good because there's growth that comes from it, but like delineation of conflict is so fucking important, because that's what breaks people's brain, is when they get so far in their head that they rationalize like something they couldn't fathom, so much so that they have to forge, even subconsciously, a different personality to fathom that.
Yeah,
and I think
creating an alter, right? That's exactly what you just described as alter creation.
So that's a really big way that like the cloning and stuff functions. Is you've got all these people who get their brains consciously sucked out of their brain. That's what it is. But like the imprint, the shit that makes us fire, like a thumbprint, like it's measurable every single time. Like the way our brains fold, it's measurable.
Like a fingerprint before your mind, like a mind print kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. I gotta grab my phone charger because it's really nice outside. I can't really show you too much, but that's my view.
Oh, nice. That's beautiful.
Back up to the woods.
You're right inside the forest.
Let me see. Grab this. Continue the conversation. Joseph, am I crazy?
Yes.
Perfect. How crazy is he?
You know, the people that you remember when conspiracy theory first became like sort of like a negative term to the general public, like if those of us who like to do research and not just go with the mainstream narrative, if those of us can actually like wear the hat and be like, yeah, it's my hat, it's my tinfoil hat, and it's fine, like if you can do that, then it's empowering to you. Like it's the ones that get all their panties in a bunch when someone calls them a conspiracy theorist. Like you have to embrace it,
Yeah. Whatever fits. If the hat fits, wear it.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's this is silly. This is a lyric from like my favorite band, and it's Justice has different hats for different days. So it's like, why just wear one hat? Like, granted, this hat I'm wearing, this is my favorite hat, and I've had it for a while. But I have other hats, and I wear them.
Exactly.
I'm not a conspiracy. Like fundamentally, like conspiracy theorist doesn't apply. It doesn't apply here to me because like ultimately, like I practice like occult things that have been going on for thousands of years that a lot of other people are like subscribe their beliefs to, and like it's all tangible to me. Like I said, if I can build anything, I'm like really lucky that my head formatted itself that way, that if I can see something, I can design it in a 3D space, or like start by drawing it, design it in a 3D space, and then like budget for fucking materials and things like that. And like I don't think we're not what we do. So like conspiracy theorists would be somebody who just like that dwells in that world and all this stuff. But it's not what we do, it's how we do it. Like you are how you do things. So like if you're a conspiracy theorist and you're like super, super fucking angry about all the stuff that's going on, conspiracy theory comes second. First and foremost, you're an angry person.
Right.
And like that has to be
Exactly. That's a good point. It's the gun argument too. Like, does the gun shoot people or do people shoot people?
Yeah.
It really is silly. Like, it's just misplaced. It's displacement of responsibility and blame. Like, that's really the only thing that happens in mainstream media is just lies, and it's displacement of responsibility, and it's just also paying zero attention to what's actually going on in the world, because there is something that's actually going on very clearly. It's not just a fully automated thing out there. Like, there is very clearly like something going on, and that's what we have to find out and discover when we actually look into it,
Yeah. Like, organically I can bring this up in conversation, like how I like to pick things apart until it's a fucking paradox, And that's when I start making sense of things. So, okay, who fires the bullet? Does the gun fire the bullet, or does the person pulling the trigger fire the bullet? Well, it's obviously the person pulling the trigger, because guns don't just fucking go off. Like, something has to happen. There has to be a catalyst to that situation. Okay, so don't ban guns. Ban free will. Fuck it. Fuck guns. Fuck it.
Right. Well,
Free will.
that's the problem. Is
You'll
like
have
it's too easy. It's too easy. There's something else. Like, for instance, if you're gonna follow that argument at all, you would say, well, we have to ban cars as well, because it's almost easier to just pull your car into a pedestrian on the sidewalk than it is to grab a gun, get the permit for it, go find out who you want to kill, plan the whole thing. Like, just know where they live, and then when you're driving the neighborhood, just turn your wheel over. Then, well, now the cars are also, like dangerous weapons that everyone needs to have a permit. Like, it becomes ridiculous the second you take one logical step into it. Just one. It's very silly.
That's where that organic process comes in. You're just like, boy, I sure feel angry about the shit that's going on. But then, like, you meet it next with your head, and then, like, there's no action that can be taken because it's immediately killed at logic. Like you're saying, like, that first step into logic, that's where things, if they can be unraveled, like, that's about where it stops. Now, like, when there's, like, certainty, people move on from what they're thinking and, like, take those convictions that they have and go fucking shoot up an elementary school. Or, like, just happened in fucking Texas. Somebody went and sat in a sermon and pulled out a fucking rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that the dude who, like, ended that situation, like, he had to feel first that something was wrong, and then, like, logically look at the situation and then act on it. That's how that organic process works. And it's so, like, skimmed over that people, like, the equation of people just being love and light. The paradox of balance and duality.
It's not true. Love and light isn't true. It's one aspect. It's just the same way as, like, Christians in their black and white world. Like, they say it's either the devil, either he's demon possessed or he's a child of God. It's like, no, that's a simplistic version. Like, yes, there is, like, possession. Yes, there is a divine aspect to all of us. But, like, we don't need to be so one or the other type mentality. Like, doesn't make any sense.
Like, it's what's held us together pretty tangibly. Like, we are where we are because we have subscribed to duality. But then again, we are also where we are because we've subscribed to duality. Mm-hmm. So this is where I like to ask, like, okay, let's take fucking, like, concepts of duality and like hot and cold, light and darkness, and good and evil. Okay, cool. So draw me a line on a thermostat where hot becomes cold or cold becomes hot.
Uh-huh.
There is truly heat and then lack thereof. So, like,
and then it's relative anyway. Like, remember back to when your own hand, dipping into some water, right? Yep. If you dip your frozen ass hand into some pretty warm water or some cold water that's, like, a little bit warmer, it will feel like burning hot. Like, your own perception of the temperature is also relative. So even if you were to somehow delineate it into these absolute, like, archetypical, like, but battling each other things, it's still relative even at that point. It just doesn't matter.
Okay, here's a pretty good segue. Order and chaos, right? I'm happy that I was able to reconcile shit by, like, studying hermetics and hermetic principles, the reconciliation of duality and stuff, because, like, a lot of people get hung up on, like, oh, there must be order and then there must be chaos, and that they're completely different things. Mm-hmm. But just like heat and absence of heat, or light and absence of light, you've got order, which is what it is. That's what's discernible. That's what we can see. But chaos is just a different order that we can't quite wrap our heads around. And it's so silly. But, like, what's chaos for the spider? What's supper for the spider is chaos for the fly, sort of deal.
Right.
Being alive at this time is so immeasurably cool to me because we can have these conversations. The fact that you and I are sitting right here, okay, it's 2020 or whatever. So 20 years ago, you and me doing this would have cost so much fucking money. I'd have to fly out to where you are. or we'd have to fucking find some media agency that could connect us via some outdated piece of shit computer system. But now, like, conversation has changed, and we have concepts based on the time that we're alive that I don't really think we've had before. And how old are you, dude?
I'm 34.
Okay, so you, like me, I'm 26. I came up in the age of like learning old computers and then watching everything unfold and unravel into what we have now with everything being so accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So we grew up with words like download and program and algorithm and things like that. So we're having conversations now between ourselves with a language that is still relatively new, at least in this format, in the way to describe things.
Yeah.
That's what I think, like, I've been told, like, oh, you're an old soul, or, you're not from this dimension. It's like, no. I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. Because I'm supposed to have these conversations, or else I wouldn't have learned all these fucking neat words.
Yeah.
I also love computers, so, there's that. I'm the occultist who fucking loves computers.
Well, the computer it defines this entire, like, century, I guess you could say it.
Yeah.
It literally defines the entire century, and I think that's what the event horizon was, or the event as they call it. It already happened. Like, I don't think it's something in the future. I think the event is simply, it's like the part of ourselves that is infinite, or you could call it part of the Godhead, that part, just remembering what it is, because when it remembers what it is, then it starts. That was something I had to reconcile internally, and I think it's part of my purpose here, is how to sort of allow the humans, or us to allow ourselves, to know that we are the infinite and we are divine, without having to bring into it all this retarded shit about, oh, he's God, or oh, he needs to be sitting on the throne now, or oh, we need to crucify him, like any of this bullshit. Like, no, we don't need that. Like, we are the divine, we are infinite, we're exploring, and it's fine. Like, we can be ordinary and regular and have fun conversations without all that other like retarded shit,
Like, that goes into considering yourself God. Like, that goes really, that speaks to the, like, discrepancies in the philosophies of, like, Western world and Eastern world, because the Western mentality, for, like, the span of however old this place is, however old consciousness and people are, this is still relatively new shit that we're doing over here.
Mm-hmm.
But so when you say, like, oh, I'm God, and, like, a child is like, oh, I'm God, in America, they're just like, no, like, you need to be going back to church, so you figure out how to be subservient and stuff. But when a kid in Asia, and in that line of thinking, they come to their mom and dad, they're just like, I'm God. Like, the parents are like, yeah, welcome to the family. Like,
right.
Thanks for catching up.
Right.
Everybody over there has what to us seems like so backwards, and that, again, super tickles me to be alive at this point in time in history.
It is.
So,
It's all. I feel like this is why it's exciting, is because whatever the mundane sort of thing you absorbed, you osmosed as you were growing up as a child, view, whatever that was, it turns out that it's flip-flopped. So all of the sci-fi that you read is actual reality, and then the thing that you were presented was just a big stupid lie. Like, there's no creativity in it whatsoever. It's completely flipped,
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's really, like, if you can get a hold of that idea and just be like, what can I do? Who can I talk to? How can I interact? How can I help grow this thing? Whatever it is, like, there's space for you. There's space for everybody. We're all kind of, like, waiting around for more people to be like, yeah, let's like do something,
It's like, we should be those people. We should be those conduits and catalysts to growth. They say, like, you want to see a change in the world, do something yourself.
Yeah.
And fucking, dude, Michael Jackson had to start with the man in the mirror, man. He did. He had to start with, like, at home base. Do enough to know enough to do enough. So, like...
And look what happened to him. Like, you have to be brave as well, because, like, you have to remember, yes, all the sci-fi stuff in some sense is real, and if you do, like, raise your hand and be like, pick me, let me do this thing, then you might end up like Michael Jackson. It's very possible. But again, like, that's an amazing story, even to be himself, even if he was all the things that we sort of witnessed happen through him, it's still like it's kind of choosing you're gonna live or you're gonna like hide under your bed all your entire life. You know?
I've been yeah, I've been hiding out for a little bit because uh, going on record with Og, I love the dude. Him and I have been friends since I fell out of the cloning community. He's somebody I do know from the cloning centers, and I would Skype with him for like 4 or 6 hours, just picking up things and trying
Mm-hmm.
to rationalize some things. And he introduced me like to a new group of people, and that's a whole other story on its own. But every time I feel the itch to like go on record or say something or whatever it is, I'm just like, hey man, help me sort through this, and if this sounds reasonable to you, then like let's go on record and talk about it, which is it's always been a problem because like people that consider themselves targeted individuals consider themselves like watched even without any sort of basis behind it.
Right.
Every time we try and record something, we have oh my god, immeasurable difficulty staying on camera, keeping microphones in order, uploading things, editing stuff. He's had shit just disappear on him. I've had shit just disappear off my computer, only to like come up 2-3 years later when it's like no longer relevant.
Yeah.
So that video I did with him, it was very clear there were like technical difficulties, like couldn't keep cameras on, couldn't fucking get audio in for shit. So I always feel really bad for him because I've been an editor for a lot of things visually, and it's a pain in the ass to do the monotonous, like, okay, cut this here, paste this here, make sure this makes sense and all of it. So
Yeah.
every time I do something that gets really fucky, he's just like, all right, it's going to take me like 2 or 3 days. I'm like, I feel you, dude. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it's this way, but it is what it is. And the last time I did this and talked to like openly about this shit on public record, not just to people that know me and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been practicing a little bit. I had a friend from Colorado come down, and I told him what I'll tell you and anybody that has ears to listen that I did a thing. I think I did a thing, and I fucking sat in self doubt for like 2 years trying to wrap my mind around this crazy shit. But nobody came out to me and was like, well, you're wrong and you didn't do this, or I did this, or and then in the video I did talking about this deity and all this shit that happened back in 2016, like I told Og, and I'll say it here, I'll say it right now, even if I'm like a crackpot and this is some sort of like ridiculously convoluted psychosis, even if like 1%, like 1/10 of 1% of what I'm saying is true, that really should be enough to like stir something up, to cause enough friction to like get the fault lines to move. So if I didn't do this, I was hoping somebody would come along and be like, no, I would like to claim responsibility. Plus the chronological events in the order that they happened, and nobody has said anything. So like the people who were present and watched all this shit happen unfold on the internet at the time, like it's a thing, man. Like there's a cult now. So I've had Donald Marshall's cult that I helped structure. Some of the people that Og introduced me to try to start a cult around me, like out from under my fucking feet. And I was like, no, it's not about one person. It's not about anything like that. And then all of this stuff now that's going on with Keck and all this shit, like that is a cult. There's a people who actively saw this happen and believe that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And like chronologically, I had a part to play in it, and it is what it is. I can't exaggerate anything, dude. Saying it sounds unreal, but again, like it's taken me a little bit to wrap my head around some of this shit.
Well, you have okay. I want, if I can add a tiny bit of structure. This whole conversation was sparked because I was talking with my friend Omar about Keck, and And then like I told you when I messaged you, I had remembered that you made this video with Og. You know, I don't remember how long ago it was. I feel like it was like 7 or 8 months. I could be off.
Yeah, it was about halfway, maybe like March, April, May of 2019
Mm-hmm.
that I was comfortable enough to talk to him about it, and he's just like, we need to go on record, man. We need to like be having this kind of conversation because a lot of people know, and the people that know are still like perplexed because they watched it all happen. It's unreal, dude. All of it's unreal, but like, what is?
But
what's tangible?
Tell the story if you could, as if you were explaining to someone who does entertain fringe topics quite often, but who is also very logical and deductive, analytical sort of reasoning, because that's where he's coming. I'm probably more open to just the crazy, insane theories just because of who I am as a person than Omar is. But if you could try to just keep it as less woo-woo as possible of an explanation.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like until I'm like practicing something and I have a cauldron lit, I'm very much not woo-woo. I really, again, try and like keep that left brain like, how does this sound to other people? Because I know how it sounds to me, but I'm the one that's had to fucking stomach it. I'm the one that lived through it and went nuts about it. And so to start off, there's this fucking cartoon frog that circulated the internet, and it was like a fucking meme for years and years, and the frog's name was Pepe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like started, like all good things start on 4chan. And like rule number one about fucking 4chan, don't talk about 4chan, but we're past that format now, I think. And so again, it isn't even what it used to be. I've been on 4chan since like 2008, when it was like the fucking Wild West and people were posting like longitude and latitude of body parts, and people were putting out fucking shooters manifestos before they'd go and like shoot up a school and things like that. Very much the Wild West.
Wow. And
everybody has, it's because it's an anonymous board, everybody has like a little post, and it's like a string of numbers, and it's pretty much randomized. So when you start seeing like double, triple numbers, like it really sticks out, especially based on like what somebody is saying. And at the time, the consensus was like it was a joke. People were still doing like raids on fucking Taylor Swift, and like I participated in like driving Shia LaBeouf crazy with the "He Will Not Divide Us" stuff. Like, all of it happened on 4chan. These people, like, and I say this lovingly, they weaponized their autism and were able to do some things that government agencies like strive to do, and that's why
right.
It's so known that the FBI, CIA, and NSA actively monitor this, because there's like potentialities of like shooters and things like that. That's a fact. And so, you know, it's funny. Anybody that knows the people on 4chan, the people that go there, they can tell when somebody is like a CIA spook or something like that, just on how they word things and how they'll try and evoke anger and shit like that, try and like sway conversations. And it's just like, get the fuck out of here. You glow in the dark. You do. You glow in the dark. We can see you.
Uh-huh.
And so, again, just being organically part of this process, and honestly dwelling in the asshole of the surface web. Like, I got into the deep web and stuff because of 4chan. Like, I learned a lot of things from people there. But here's an example of like how the numbers would be like not deified but sought after. Somebody would post a picture of like a something egregious, like a body part in their fucking fridge or something, and they're like, okay, whoever gets triples, or whoever gets quads, whoever gets like a number 4 times or 3 times, it's like I'll post a longitude and latitude of where a body part is buried. And so you had people like actively getting like triples and doubles and quadruple numbers, and they would fucking report this to the authorities, and the authorities would go out there and dig up an arm or a torso or something like that. So like we're talking about, again, the asshole of the internet.
What are these people like outing themselves, or are they like
anonymously?
They are, but they are out. They're claiming responsibility essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like how do you not, like, how is that not a thing when they post like a huge thing about 4chan is timestamps and all this stuff. So when somebody posts a picture of a timestamp with a date and the thread that they're posting in, it's you know it's a real thing. Like it's not somebody fucking role playing or anything like that, because that is where that shit occurs. And so this place is like a hotbed for all kinds of like crazy things, crazy people, and like I fit right in. I do. I fit right in. Like I try and look at things as real as they are, and I've been like formally like dedicated to pagan heathenry since about 16. So it's been 10 years. I just celebrated my 10th Yule, which is
Yeah.
Christmas before Christmas.
Okay.
Time I picked up on so much stuff, things that I wanted to just learn because I didn't see anyone else learning, or I'd want palmistry for the sake of teaching other people, not to like charge them money or tarot or anything, man. Um, so like the occult background is like pretty key in all of this. I had been really good at meditating and all this stuff for a long time. Uh, really lucky to have people that I considered friends and family, support me and listen, and hear me out, and be like, well, it makes a lot of fucking sense. So like little bits of vindication about pretty steadfast on the path that I'm on. And about 2015, I had started a commune. I got my commune started here in the Woodlands, up of Old Town Spring, North Houston. And at most, we had like 9 people. Joseph was one of those people.
9 or 90? 9 or 90?
One more time. What'd you say?
What was the number you mentioned? How many people?
9.
9. Okay.
It
Gotcha.
was like decently sized house. We split everything, and we were able to like work and all this stuff at the same time. So there was a room in the back of our garage that was unfinished, and I was like, okay, I found the house. I put all this together. I want an office. And I want a space to be able to sit and like grow cannabis. I want to be able to have my own space and have the ability to record podcasts and have conversations in private and just be out of everybody's way. I'm not trying to boggle anybody around me, just
Yeah.
the people I'm trying to boggle. So I finished out the back room, a little grow room. I used half of it as a little grow room, and I got really, really reclusive. And again, like Joseph can attest to this. I would just like disappear in there for like long periods of time, and I'd be on 4chan. I'd be exploring all kinds of things, learning whatever I could get my hands on. And then once this fucking election shit started rolling around, it was pretty well known with WikiLeaks and Julian Assange that Hillary really didn't have the fucking sense or capacity to like lead a nation of people or whatever. Like that's like the surface of it, but
Yeah.
like I know those people are into some shit. Like it's a thing, and like I know who they worship. I know where their sacrifices go. I know why they do what they do, and why to them it seems like a good idea. And that's like really fucking hard to digest, because you got to start thinking like some of these people. You have to start thinking, okay, well, obviously there's got to be some logic behind their action, or else it wouldn't be the thing that is engulfing the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty clear that this bitch had brains, and everybody was kind of like, all right, it's her. Like it's gonna have to be her, especially after like they fucked Bernie out of the election pretty bad. The last person I thought would be president was Trump, because to me, like life is like more of a joke than it's not. It's debilitating because I'll say some like really dark shit at like Christmas this last year that I think is like perfectly funny, and I look up and everybody's like mouths agape at the table. And so I thought, like, that's the last thing that's going to happen. And if anything, like, it's a joke and he'll pull out and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I watched everything, like, really swell, and I watched her fucking lie her way through all this shit. I've seen egregious, egregious footage of her and Huma Abedin during the Pizzagate scandal that was pretty much quashed. Again, all this sort of thing like blossomed on 4chan. Videos from the deep web surface on 4chan. And there's a video that a lot of people don't even think is real because it seems so fucked up of like Hillary and Huma in the basement of Comet Ping Pong Pizza, like dismembering a little girl and like, all this crazy shit. That sounds pretty fucking out there. But I saw a screenshot of what I knew to be that person. I'm just like, everybody knows what Hillary looks like. Everybody knows what this person looks like. That's their body, that's their hair, that's their gait, that's how they walk, that's how they carry themselves. And it was after I watched, I don't know, man, like maybe a third of that video that I couldn't really watch anymore because, like, some people thrive on gore and things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature. While I have a stomach for it because that is the reality of things, I really didn't want to see. I really didn't want to see the world become that. I didn't want to. I didn't want it to be any more than it already fucking was. I got desperate, man, and I knew that I was playing with fire at the time, and um, I really went. I really went on a fucking like mental process of a journey of like trying to find something that would like counteract like Moloch, the thing that they sacrifice kids to and stuff, the thing that
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks is an owl because of Bohemian Grove, but it's the Minotaur. It's what comes. That's this thing is this Minotaur
What's a
deity.
minotaur? What does it
Like a
look like?
bull,
A wolverine?
a bull.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the deity that guards the labyrinth, the Minotaur.
Okay.
Uh, that's one interpretation of it. But I like this thing fucking loves blood sacrifice and fucking all this other stuff that these people participate in, and that's where a lot of the shit gets channeled through. And like, I'm not like talking about aliens or anything yet, or if that even comes up. But for the love of God, I knew that fire probably really needed to be fought with fire. How do you go about asking for help? Like you're not praying to like a god you don't understand. How do you take something that already exists, even if it was like a long time ago, if it's still in the stream of consciousness, it can be tapped into because like that's us, man. We're built up of all the memories and protein
Mm-hmm.
encoding of everything that came before us. So like people are like some people like their blood naturally is accustomed to practicing certain kinds of magic and like with who my family is and stuff and the rate that I've been able to just pick up on shit, uh, I'm I'm pretty certain that I was able to like like to me if I could equate it to like a very very simple illustration for people, it was like a really long hallway with like no end, right? There's doors on each side, and behind each door represented a different demigod or pseudo deity that people had either paid mind to or like held some sort of belief over the last several thousand years. And I went knocking on doors essentially, and I was like, "Hey, man, we've got a problem." And they're like, "Yeah, we know we have a problem, and we like actively choose to stay out of it. There's not enough to feed us to where like we're gonna be able to have like a tangible effect on the outcome of things." So
Mm.
after having like a fuck ton of doors slammed in my face, I get to pretty much the end of the hallway, and like behind fucking this door, there's this little fucking like frog-headed deity from ancient Egypt. Uh, and it was a chaos deity. And like with my idea of chaos not being anything but an order we can't understand, and like I'm the archetype of the Joker, like the fool, the thing that just provides idiot laughter, the thing that will make a terrible joke and still find it funny while everyone else is like aghast at what the fuck they're witnessing.
Right.
And that was the personality of this thing, right? And it was just like I don't need too much. Just let me through, sort of deal. It's funny that you're trying to do this. It's funny that you're trying to feed a poisonous frog to a fucking bull. But how else do you fucking? You can't kill a bull, man. Have you ever seen a bullfight? How many spears it takes to
Hmm.
like wear it out? Not even like kill, but wear it out. And I'm not trying to wear it out. I'm trying to undo some shit. And maybe this at this point in my mind was like my psychosis, which is what I've been trying to reconcile for a while. It was like, did I do this thing in this order, and did it happen the way it happened? And so um, I kind of had that ingrained already, that there was something that was able to help, but it just needed through,
Can I
and it
ask
didn't.
how you were you in like a dream state or an astral state? Like what consciousness state were you in when you were walking through this hallway?
So like again, like metaphorically, it's a hallway. Like I know how to like manipulate brainwaves to hit theta, which is what really really is like the big motif grabber. Like when you're watching a movie, they have it. Like we were talking about movie magic earlier, right?
Hmm.
So this is relevant. This is how things circle and come back around to make it make sense. So within the first 3 to 4 minutes of you watching a movie, your mind goes from the alpha state, like you and I right now, we're having a conversation, we're having a back and forth. You're listening, I'm talking, I'm talking. You're talking, I'm listening. So the alpha brainwave state is like where a lot of people reside, and theta is like where you're able to slow down and start taking one thought at a time and start being able to like tap into the subconscious, where like a motif will not escape you. It'll get registered. Like you're open to receiving broader messages and things like that. So within the first 3 to 4 minutes of you sitting in front of a screen, especially in a movie theater, it's always faster in a movie theater. Your brain hits theta. It hits that wavelength, which is why we're able to watch something that's like 2.5 hours and like pull information about characters, about plots, about the meaning behind lines that equate to something bigger.
Hmm.
Uh, and we're able to like take that in and like leave a movie like not necessarily zombified or anything like that, but like we're able to take in those motifs. And just because like a movie is not outright about a love story doesn't mean that there isn't something in the back of your mind processing the fact that it is about love, just not on the surface.
Hmm.
And that is magic to me, man. Being able to induce a state of mind to where you're able to pick apart things. And the theta state is like the last thing we kind of hit before we hit delta and start going to sleep. So the like transcendental masters of fucking Eastern Asia and like the Tibetan monks and stuff like that. That's their honeypot right there, man. Like that's the thing they dip their fingers in. Like yeah, that's the sweet spot. That's the ability to like sit in one place, close your eyes, you settle into that rhythm, and you begin to delineate your thoughts. It's not just like firing, firing, firing. It's like you're able to have one complete whole thought process at a time. And so I use binaural beats to like induce that, especially in the theta frequency that helps the brain slow down. Like I said, again, I'm like more logic than I'm not. Like
Hmm.
I really have taken a pretty left brain approach at like how we see things and how we function upstairs. So I would sit in those states and like go door knocking more or less. My grandmother was a Jehovah's Witness. It's in my proteins, man. So it's funny to see how the momentum of my ancestors plays out in the most trivial of tasks. At the time,
Andrea
this
was
was
in J Dubs too. She has the whole backstory of her side of like getting in there, being like you're in there, and then you gotta somehow get extracted or extract yourself, and then you look back and you're like, oh my god, like what was going on there?
yeah. And like sometimes the thought process and the getting in touch with like that part of humanity, that collective superconscious where everything is recorded, the thing that is the driving force behind like the 100th monkey experiment, the
Hmm.
collectiveness. So I was trying to like tap into that through my own proteins, which is more or less like everyone else's. Like it's all made up of the same carbon and things like that. So knowing that, I'm able to like go in and like have unnecessarily conversations because it's not a language. It's not a spoken language. It's all like it all passes through that heart center.
Mm-hmm.
It's also how like I've been like super able to stay in touch with like my relatives and stuff that have passed away. Like I've had a lot of people die, but I'm always the one at the funeral that keeps everybody cool, keep everybody happy. And like
Would you
we've
say
had
it's
some
similar
like
to
pretty
would you say it's similar to telepathy, like just a mind to mind uplink downlink of information kind of
yeah.
thing?
See, there you go. Download of information.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be saying stuff like that if we weren't born when we were born. So,
Computers.
like with all this shit that I was like stabbing in the dark at, more or less out of desperation, like the thing that could honestly fucking care less was like, yeah, why not? And like there was a lot of, like I said, like the proverbial door slamming in my face and being greeted with the hesitancy of like, no, can't do it. It's not my time. Or this is too big, and I don't like that answer. I don't. I don't like that answer at all. So yeah, I got into it with this fucking thing, and conveniently enough, couldn't even tell you the fucking name of the group on Facebook I was in, but there was like a small little group of people who were really into experimenting with making contracts between each other and trying to like farm energy to like use and utilize. And I got on Facebook, I saw that that was an option. And I'm like, I can't, like, I'm not able alone to like poke a hole and like let something through. I knew that because I'd already been met with so much hesitancy on all fronts.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I'm gonna probably need help from other people. I'm probably gonna have to like call a pool and like work off of that. So luckily enough, there was a group of people, and I'm like, okay, this is the sigil we're gonna use. Everybody write everybody's names down, and like seal the contract, and like everybody meditate on it. Everybody think about it. Everybody at certain times in the day, 3:33, 4:44, whatever time, like it was pretty much like spelled out that this is what we were doing, just kind of pulling ourselves together. And they didn't know I was doing what I was doing. Everybody had their own reasons for wanting to do this sort of thing anyway. And it didn't really matter. What mattered to us was the fact that we were doing something collectively, and the collective intention of something is a little bit more potent than just one person doing what they're doing and forging that
Right.
format themselves. So I can show you this contract. It's still sealed because I refuse to break it. Um, I took my slice of the pie and forged it into like a proverbial dagger of sorts, something I knew would like be enough to like pierce a small hole, just enough to like, like just pop it open a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, like I don't know how like you intend on like feeding or whatever it is, but like here's a hole, here's a route. And it was like, okay, it took what was already there, and like I don't know if it was like preordained somehow that this had to happen, because like Pepe and shit like that, this cartoon frog was already out and about, man. It was like a fucking meme for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And that kind of had not necessarily the same mentality of this deity, this frog-headed deity, but it attached itself to fucking 4chan, and it was like starting to manipulate the fucking algorithms based on the things that generated these numbers, right? So anybody that would talk about Keck, because it started coming out, people were like, "Oh shit, there's also this fucking chaos frog from fucking Egypt that like we think might be like having an effect on the numbers." And I know that seems really weird, but like when you would say something and it was like honest, and when it was like dead on, or like something that had to come to pass, you would get absurd things like 4 4s repeating, 5 5s repeating, things that were so unignorable that it created like a fucking personality cult around this fucking frog. And there's
Mm.
all these other things that start coming in to fucking vindicate the fact that like this is like a solid thing happening. And people watch this shit happen in real time. That's why there's like still people who are trying to like rationalize what the fuck they participated in just by sharing a fucking cartoon frog. And then the fucking news media is just like, this frog is dangerous. And of course, that's the thing that everybody is just like, oh, they say it's fucked up, so I might as well fucking do my homework on this. And guess what? All this time, this feeding, this fucking little thing, it's just like sitting there accruing poison. Eventually, somehow, some way, it wasn't my intention for fucking Donald Trump to win, man. But his campaign and Donald Trump Jr., they started fucking retweeting this frog because it was like a racist symbol. And to everybody that was a part of it, that was watching all of it happen, they're just like, it's a fucking meme. But then the people who are really, really watching, they're just like, what's gonna happen? Like this is building up to something. And then like the last thing everybody thought would happen happened. And the post, like I've got there's so many screenshots, like all of it's out there and documented. Post that fucking threw everyone for a loop. It was straight sevens. And it's like a 9 or 8 digit fucking like code that's generated for posts. Each post is its own number. So like the same person can like reply over and over and over, and it will never be this. It will never be the same number. So it cycled to 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7 7, all sevens, and the post was Trump will win. It's funny. Wow. Again, like just look up 4chan screenshot fucking Pepe or Keck or whatever the fuck you want to look up, and like, whatever it is, it like merged with this, and it fed off of all of this angst and all of this disillusionment and pain that people were experiencing, because like the world is generating that, and the things that are like at play, like I have a really, really large force of generating that. So like Moloch the deity is feeding off of all of this shit like pretty directly based on like the echelon of people. And then along comes this fucking cartoon with all these weird historical accuracies that like everybody was like, okay, this is a fucking deity from ancient Egypt. You can't fucking ignore it. And like there's so many weird little itty bitty things that as I'm participating and watching all of this, trying to figure out what's gonna happen next, and like did I really do a thing, or am I just happily crazy, or
well, you always have that as a fallback if you need it, right? Like I'm insane.
Always, man. I'm more than happy to be like, cool, explain it to me, right. Please, like explain it to me, because I like to know. But yeah, like she was set up to win, and everybody knew it.
Right.
All the polls were like fucking forged, and luckily Trump came along and was like, fake news. Everybody, yes, we fucking knew it. Sort of. So like all of this fed this fucking frog, man. I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, Moloch is dead, but I think that fucking thing has been pretty fucking crippled. So that's why.
So the people that went in with you on this idea, right? The idea of energizing this deity. You're saying you didn't tell them that was the purpose of it?
Hell no.
Okay. How did you explain it to them? What did you tell them they were participating in?
We were all just participating in a collective pool. We're like, okay, we're all gonna start focusing on like this sigil. Like I have the contract. It's on 2 pieces of paper. One of the pieces of the paper is everybody's first and last names, and there's probably like a dozen names on there. And then the other one is like we all drew the same sigil, and we all started focusing on that and started trying to pool like our intentions, meditations, practices, hexes, anything. We would try and like put a little bit of that aside, like saving the change and just putting it to the side. So like then everybody at some point was able to like pick out their slice of shit, and like enough time had passed that I thought shit would be up enough. What's up, dude?
Just stop talking.
Yes, sir, I am. Talking about Keck.
Nice.
Yeah. Remember when all that was happening and I got those 2 tree frogs? Well, yeah. I had to have an homage to what was going on, so that was consistent.
Is this a different roommate or the same guy?
This is the same dude. So was I pretty reclusive in the commune? What was I doing in there? What was I doing in there? That's the craziest thing. What the fuck is he doing in there? Jesus.
I got the answer, but
You got an answer, and like luckily you've been around long enough to like hear me talk about things like years ago now. And like we'll be watching like Six Underground, or we'll be watching a movie. Like, did I not say that this was a thing? Did I not say that this would be common? But it is. Like,
now Disney's talking about cloning.
and now Disney's talking about cloning. Right. That's again, it is what it is. And, like,
It all comes around. I think like I know part of what I like to do as far as my own information output is to allow conversation to happen where normally the gravity of the topic would actually get people to bundle up emotionally, and then they'd have a fit or they'd have a panic attack or something, so they can't even talk about something that's actually happening. Because if something's actually happening, like for instance Aurora, I don't know if do you follow Aurora at all? Do you know of her? Aurora,
what's her?
Flying Rainbow Lasagna Woman. Maybe you don't know of her, but
I'm pretty sure I'm friends with that person on Facebook.
probably. But she says 9/11 was just a giant like sorcery act. That's what she says. That's all it was. It was a giant sigil basically that was practiced for every single American and pretty much everyone in the world, and it has so much power because it had everyone thinking about the same thing, same instant, right? So whatever they wanted to bring in energetically, they had the biggest opportunity in all of history through 9/11 just because everyone was thinking about it.
Well, it's hard to not think about it when, for the first 3-4 years after that, it was on TV every fucking day. Somebody was talking about it. They were talking about
it's not just
shit that happened.
About it. TSA doing all that
TSA,
stuff.
that's
with
right.
The racial,
Yeah, flying became a nightmare, right? Immediately after 9/11, flying was a nightmare for everybody.
Dude, I was like, this is a testament to the mindset of like a kid at the time. I was young, and we were going on vacation, and like 9/11 had like just happened a couple months before, right? And like I was a kid. You like people when they hear this, like you have to forgive me. I was a child, an ignorant little child.
How old were you?
And fuck, I was in 3rd grade.
You're
so
8 years younger than me, and I was like in high school. I was like 15 or 16.
Yeah, and you're like 8 years old, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So we were getting on a plane, and a dude with a turban got on the plane, and I sat there and I cried the whole time on the plane.
I think you should have been 8. I was like 16. You should have been like 8 or something like that.
I remember when I was. It happened when I was in 3rd grade, because I remember like we didn't have to go home or anything, but that was it. That's all that was talked about that day. And teacher and things like that. I was young. I was a young kid, and my mom, like, she could only try and understand because she could see what was happening and she understood the context of everything. But she's like, "Please calm down. Like, you're embarrassing me." And I'm like sitting there on this plane trying to keep it together. Every time there's like a slight bit of turbulence, I'm like on edge and freaking out. Every time he gets up to go to the bathroom, I clench onto my mom's shirt. I'm just like, "That's it. This is it." It sounds like really fucking racist, and it sounds sad, but that was the narrative that was being pushed.
That's exactly what. That's the most logical reaction you could have in that scenario.
I got
right?
goldfish and popcorn for my sisters. So if you want some of those snacks later, there are snacks.
Yeah.
I gotta take care of.
Yeah, I think we're probably gonna have to say goodbyes pretty soon here because we're out like on 2 hours right now.
That is funny. Well, the bulk of it is there.
I'd like to have you back again for maybe a part 2, something that because we've talked I don't know, we discussed a lot, but what I'm more about now
Don't
is
fight
what
that.
once you can integrate the fact that like there's a lot that's been going on, there's a lot that's continuing to go on, there's gonna be a whole lot more to come. Once you've gotten that pretty much established, then I want to actually interact with the people, right? Who's you and who's everyone else, people who are actually not just robots, and determine like where do we want this thing to go? Because clearly, you had an impact. Maybe it wasn't all you. Maybe that whole thing was partially just you and those people, and maybe there was some galactic oversight outside that's like, hey, we can't allow this killer creature to win, and then you jumped in on that boat. Maybe who knows exactly the gravity or effect of you, but the fact is you're doing something. Like you're intentionally like, I don't want this creature to be in power, and how can I help this creature not to be in power? And then that came out of it, right?
I mean, ultimately, like, desperation breeds innovation, and I was very desperate. I had all this shit accrued in my mind, and like the things you're saying, like the what you just said about going back and confirming and making sure this happened and all this stuff. That's where I've been for the last like year and a half, 2 years, is like combing back through every little thing that happened, looking at my notes, and it's like, okay, I still have this contract. Like that's a tangible thing that happened chronologically in that fucking time that I still have. I've got like a tangible thing, and it's like I gotta hold on to the facets of my sanity that I can't give away. Things like happened in order.
You got to stay
Things,
grounded. I think it's important to stay grounded. We can get overwhelmed easily anyway, just because like the that thought alone, like maybe I helped sway, an election. Even that thought alone can cripple people. Like, just that's too much. It's like, how could I possibly be responsible? But the fact is like the whole of life is like this magical, crazy thing, and it's really only how much you believe, like input you have, and who you believe you can talk to, on what order of power do you believe yourself capable, and then you just go try it, and then like you did, if something looks like it happened, then it happened. Like, who's to say that it didn't?
right. And again, who are you people to say it didn't happen? Like, please tell me. Please. I'm tired of racking my brain about things like this, but
Yeah,
luckily I've got
please
people
weigh
like
in
you to-
and weigh in the comments, and please be nice. Spencer seems to be nice, very nice person, so intents are good. But do weigh in. I would like to have a good civil conversation. I think everybody knows like this. The one person pretending to be in charge of all this is kind of like a joke in the beginning, but at the same time, like the people like Hillary are literally like living dead, like carnivorous vampiric creatures that we don't want to be even pretending to lead us, right? Like we don't even want that happening.
creature.
Yeah, that's not a creature we want doing anything.
So can I like add something on a final note about like that person was like born a human being and things like that.
Hmm.
Humanity, concept of fucking humanity, empathy and love, it is so masterfully fleeting because like based on like what circumstance, like on one end of the spectrum, if somebody lives their entire life in poverty and has to succumb and do some pretty inhuman shit to stay afloat, that person is like whittling away and sacrificing parts of their empathy and humanity to be able to survive. But on the opposite end of that spectrum, you've got people who don't struggle a day in their life, that have everything handed to them, and that live in their own fucking world, that don't have empathy because like they just don't have the environment that's conducive to
Yeah.
like looking at people as equals and things like that. So there's a really fine fucking gray area between like retaining that and like striving to retain it. Like being able to possess it, know that you've got something that fundamentally makes you human, the things that cause us to make mistakes and learn and grow. Like when you stop growing, you're losing like these little shards, and eventually those little things add up, and you're stuck, soulless fucking asshole, in service to a fucking deity that you're only serving because that's the world you were brought up in.
Yeah.
Like it's really difficult to have to consider things from that perspective, but they're not having to consider that perspective. They're living it, and
Yeah.
it's very tangible with the events that are happening and what we come to find out that these people they're not so much people anymore. They're
Right.
creatures. Said something that's not necessarily totally human.
Yeah. And at this, I agree. I think more so than anything else, I think to be appreciative that those of us who have that spark of empathy to actually just like say thank you to whatever anything that you believe in. Like it's obviously something there's more than you and I. Like there's obviously a cohesive thing that holds everything together. Whatever you believe, it doesn't matter. But just like the feeling of gratitude alone can go a really long way in not letting you start that tumble down the slippery slope into 100 years down the road I'm an automaton at the service of Moloch and I don't know why. Like that can happen if you're not paying enough attention. You're just kind of being greedy and like yeah I sign here at this dotted line. You don't know what you're really signing yourself up for if you're not being very intentional with every single move and action and thought. Very intentional. There's no reason you can't do that.
Which is why I did not go to LA, which is why I chose a different life for myself. And it's not the most understandable one, but like, yeah, believe me, I know it's not understandable. I don't fathom everything, and I'm more than happy to be like, somebody pour some water in me and show me where my holes are. So I can adjust those things so I can
Yeah.
where my trajectory is headed and things like that. So
I think you're doing well. You're a very interesting person. Thank you for coming on. This was great.
thank you for you, dude. This was fun. I'm glad to be able to initiate some kind of conversation. Call me whatever you want. My name is Spencer.
Yeah. You're welcome to come back on again at some point as things unravel a little more and we show a little more of the Matrix showing its bones and whatnot. So, yeah, come back on.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
for you.
Yeah, thanks, Spencer.
Bye.
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 That was fun.